what we want is everyone to feel safe, to be able to learn, understanding their bodies and understanding how everything works and that they, what their rights are and how to communicate. I'm like, I just think that's so important. Hi, I'm Mary Weiss, and you are entering A World Gone Good.
Well, hello, my name's Steve, and this is World Gone Good, the podcast where we look for the light and sometimes shine the light into the darkness to discover, you know what? There's still some good happening on this here floating rock we are all stuck on together. You can help us spread the good all around by not just listening, you can also subscribe on whatever platform you are on right now. Rate and review us there too, or please, yes, share us with your friends. However and wherever you like to share things with your friends, most of us it's social media, some of us just face to face, other people just like to randomly, find strangers and tell them things. I don't judge. We appreciate your support, and as always, we say, and we mean it, thank you. Today's show starts with a warning. We are talking about human anatomy and sexuality and all that good stuff, so you may be hearing some terms and some words and some information that might be NSFW. Google it, IAYKYK, Google that too. But fear not, we are keeping everything in the PG-13 lane right here. And we're not going to veer over into triple X. Not that there's anything wrong with triple X, no judgments. And really, if there's one takeaway from today's show, and I feel like you're going to have a whole lot of takeaways, but if there's one, it's this: no judgments. Previously, we've spent time with Wendy Miller from Sex Ed the Musical, the podcast, and gotten our good sex talk on. You can find that show if you search back in our episode guide. And today, ironically, someone who knows Wendy pretty well, me too, is here to continue the sex education conversation. Mary Weiss is an actress, voiceover talent, storyteller, and in her spare time, she's a teacher, teaching teenagers all about their bodies and self-worth. Oh, we are going to have such a fun conversation today. Mary Weiss,
Hello.
When did you first learn about the birds and the bees?
Oh, good Lord. I was just thinking about that I don't remember. I'm like, I don't remember. I remember friends of mine, when I was a senior in college, high school, my best friend at the time, she was a class valedictorian, so smart. And we also played basketball together, and we were on the bus, and she said something. She didn't flat out say she was sleeping with her boyfriend, but she said something that alluded to it. And I remember internally my head exploding, because I was so kind of behind the curve on that. And I just my brain, you're what? You're doing what? And I had no real concept really of even what it meant. I'm sure I had to have known what the biology of it was, the anatomy, but really what that meant to me, and I don't know whether we had the talks and the lessons and I just blanked them out, or
Right.
Or we got some weird sanitize. I remember I have a vague recollection of some stupid film that mostly probably talked about our periods. The girls were in one room, the boys were in another. But I don't remember a birds and the bees talk. I don't remember one with my parents. I got it from my friends eventually. I eventually got the down and dirty from my friends.
Yeah, we had the little yellow book, and my mother, who will be listening, is going to clap her hands with glee, because this is a favorite story of hers to tell at I don't know, maybe my birthday or Thanksgiving or any time, maybe a bar mitzvah in the family.
When you brought a boyfriend home for the first time.
Yeah, or just right, exactly. Anytime to just get in front of a crowd and make me mortified. So we had this thing called the little yellow book. And it was this 1960s book, and it was this little paper book. I remember it, and my mother gave it to me at 11 or 12, and it was and it was sort of like thrown at me, read this, and I was like, okay, and it was chapter by chapter how every animal reproduces, and it starts with fish, And then it goes to like chickens. And then it goes to like cows. I got so fucking bored with this book that I'm like, all right, well, I had an assumption that the direction that one applied oneself to make a child was different than these, animals and humans. And I gave up. I didn't read till the end. So then I don't remember somebody came up to me in the family and said, do you have any questions? I'm like, no. And I said, it's a little different than I thought because the man stands behind the woman. And yeah. And then everyone to this day, oh my God. And my mother screamed at the top of her lungs. See, now she thinks she screamed it really funny. Like, haha, it was a joke. But then she was screaming it in rage. She's like, you're not a chicken. You're not a chicken. So now you grew up Catholic.
I did. Are
there any, I don't know, issues with talking about reproduction as a Catholic person?
It was a heavy sigh. Wasn't that heavy? Oh, geez, please. So there's 5 of us. We were just talking before about, there's 5 of us. And I really think, my older siblings, 9 years, 8 years, and 5 years older. And I swear to God, my parents they got to my younger brother and I, and they're like, we're tired. We can't, And so I think just a lot of things fell to the wayside. I remember my parents I love hindsight. My parents would like push my brother and I out the door to go to mass on the morning, because we could walk to the church to go to mass and they'd stay home. And it always felt so unfair. I'm like, why do they get to stay home? And it only was as an adult that I realized why. Because that's when they had some alone time. I absolutely know that's what it was. I don't know that it came from my mom, like necessarily a guilt thing. I don't believe that's what it was, but it definitely came from the messaging I got in church. Just, you can't go to, I did Catholic school for 4 years. I was I was around the church, all through high school. I played guitar masses, for God's sake. I stood up in front with my guitar at 9:30 on Sunday mornings and sang John Denver songs.
Did you go to CCD?
I did. But to me, CCD was basically, we heard the same 3 or 4 stories, the fish and the loaves, and we made banners with like glue and felt that got put up in the church. I feel like that's what we did. Like, we didn't do any real Bible study that I recall. I can't think of a specific, but I know that it was there, that sense of guilt. As I was in high school, I hated going to confession because, of course, my mom was very active in the church. She was very active. She didn't go to mass maybe as much, but she was very active, like raising money for the church. She created this thing called Night Train. They would convert the school, like these different classrooms, into like little mini nightclubs. And people would pay to come in. And there was there were some little restaurants. So people would, Father O'Brien did the Mexican restaurant. Sometimes in the gym, they would do she'd take a musical and she'd butcher it and do like a 45-minute version of it. And they would raise tens of thousands of dollars for the church.
Hold on a second. If there was a murder, this would be an episode of Heart to Heart. This is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. What? When you said she organized a night train, I was thinking, like on like a train track. But then I was thinking, a night train, like a night training, like they were training something. This was just like Catholics going crazy. This is like Catholics in the wild.
Well, other schools kind of did it, but they called them different things, like Portical or whatever. Ours was like the night train because they could say night train to New Orleans, and it would have a New Orleans theme.
Oh, okay.
Or it could say night train to San Francisco, and it would have a San Francisco theme or something like that.
Where in the world are we when we were talking? Where'd you grow up?
Chicago. So I grew up north of Chicago, in a picturesque little town named Wakanda. I think we mentioned that before because the movie came, Black Panther came out and suddenly, nobody had ever heard of Wakanda. And it's the only Wakanda. I know, like the other towns have it. As far as I know, watch people, all of those listeners will be listening, go, wait a second, I know a Wakanda in Iowa. So I was around the church a lot, and I used to hate to go into the confessional because the priests knew me. There were only 3 priests. And part of me is like, I can't tell him things that I might be doing. Like, I think I imposed my own sense of not doing stuff because I didn't want to go in and like have Father O'Brien go, Mary, what did you do? Of course she was going to know who I was. I just, that did not jive with me. And I think part of me just like, sort of like, no, don't do anything, really horrible or whatever. So,
So on this wonderful topic of sex education and our own personal histories, you have elevated, you've gone to the next level in the good that you're doing, which is one of the main reasons why I asked you to come on and join me and talk about it. You are a volunteer sex educational professional?
oh no, I just say, sex ed, facilitator. How's that?
Oh, fancy.
Sex ed facilitator. Yeah. I was thinking about it. It's like, we teach what we most need to learn.
Wait, didn't Woody Allen say those who cannot do teach? So what does that say?
That might actually apply more to me at the moment. I was talking to a friend who has been doing this kind of teaching for years as a volunteer, and it just, everything in my internal system, like, if I was a computer, everything would light up and just go ding, 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 ding. I mean, it was just the perfect thing. Because as we said earlier, I've done a lot of different kinds of volunteering. I've taught before. I love to teach. It's really fun to teach when there's no stakes, and also when you're not like in the school. Sometimes when you're in the college system, there's all these hoops to jump through. But when you're a volunteer, it's not that you don't have parameters, because there are, but at the same time, there's kind of a freedom to, like, you don't have to, I'm not worried about losing a job. I'm actually doing it because I love to do it, and that's a whole different kind of teaching, right?
Totally.
Yeah. So this friend of mine told me about it, and I just was like, oh my God, everything went off. And I immediately started the process of what I needed to do, which was to get fully trained. I mean, this is a really important topic, and you are dealing with young people, teens. So, there's a lot of regulation. And so it's all fully, like, what do we call it? Not vetted, but yeah, we are vetted.
Yeah.
And then like 5 days of training, and, and I'm the perpetual student. So I just loved it. Two things, because number one, there were things I didn't know about how our bodies work.
I was going to ask you.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
There's things I didn't know about. But part of that is because, number two, they've finally figured some things out that they didn't know back when we were learning this stuff, Steve.
Right. Right, totally. And the access is more there, right? And we're also, it seems like, everything is at your fingertips with your phone, makes it a little more communicative and open. What is the word I'm looking for? Do you know what I mean? Because it's not like you're going to some dusty old library and pulling out some old ancient book.
It's not taboo. It's not like you're surreptitiously, like, I remember someone in my 20s gave me, the name of the book's going to go right out of my head.
The Joy of Sex.
No, not Joy of Sex, with those. Oh my God. Have you ever seen the illustration of The Joy of Sex? It's like the hairiest man on the planet.
That might be the woman. I don't know.
No, now I have to. Our bodies ourselves.
Our bodies ourselves. Yeah.
It's an amazing book, which again, I think by the time I got it, part of me was like, could I have not gotten this sooner? Because it would have really explained a lot. And a lot of that is because so much of it is taboo, or we're so afraid to ask these questions. I still remember the first time. This is such a specific moment for me. I was in Chicago with friends, and we were there's places along the lakefront where you can like picnic, and you can see the massive fireworks that come off of Navy Pier. And I was with a close friend of mine at the time, and I'm late 20s, coming on 30, and she starts talking about masturbating, and I'm like, what? Not that I hadn't, but like talking about it, and she like just flat out asked, and she was shocked I'd never had a vibrator. And to talk about that so open, like I'm in my 20s.
Well, also, I just imagine you looking left, looking right. Like, is anyone listening?
Exactly. Well, guess what my next birthday present was?
Well, I have no idea.
Exactly. We nicknamed him Buzz.
So this education stuff, though, you're doing, you are working with today's teenagers. And today's teenagers are post-millennial, scary kids that we have to say that. They're not even considered millennial anymore because, they're born in 2005, 2006, 2007.
Yeah.
Crazy. How do you relate as a teacher to them?
Oh, interesting. Thank you. What an interesting question.
Well, thank you so much.
What I really loved about the training as well is also teaching an inclusivity. Like, we're all used to saying, hey, you guys, and like, nope, let's find a more neutral language. I think one of the biggest lessons is always go back to the science. So when like if they're on the younger side, they will sometimes try to shock you or something. And you don't react to that. You're just like, you go back to the science. Someone says, has a word for the word, penis, all the different words. And you're like, that's penis. I actually had a class once where we have sometimes sections where they can send up little pieces of paper with anonymous questions. And there was a phrase I didn't know. And I just said it. I'm like, someone said, what is this? And I went, that is a great question. I don't know. Does anybody here know what that is? And like, I asked them, like, you don't come in like lectury and I have all the answers. It's very inclusive. You ask questions, you engage, you try to engage. The hardest classes are the ones where they're not engaged. And it could be any number of reasons. Like, God forbid you get the 8:00 a.m. class.
Oh my God, they're not even awake.
They're learning sex ed from grandma. I acknowledge that, so I don't try to be cool. I even acknowledge that I'm not so cool. And sometimes I even, will acknowledge that, I share that I think this stuff is fascinating and that, science has come such a long way and that I've learned things that we didn't know back in the day, which sometimes, you're looking for things that'll maybe hook them in. It's not so much about just giving them science. It's really about opening up the conversation to be able to talk about these things, all aspects of not just sex education, but relationships. Like really unpacking what consent means, teaching like gender expectations and the roles that we fall into. The thing that's so amazing about today's kids is how open that conversation is and how, they do get what some gender expectations are out there, but they also get that, what's the big deal? They're a bit more love is love automatically. But regardless, at that age, you're all uncomfortable. We're all uncomfortable with our bodies. So it's also about trying to be okay with understanding your body and communicating that, finding someone, finding advocates, finding resources so that no one feels isolated when they're having that, those first experiences. Whatever that might be. And it can be good. It could be bad. It's also teaching how to recognize when someone's in a relationship that's abusive, and that abuse could just be, constant ridicule. I think about growing up in the 70s. Hello, Grandma. And how much I internalized and normalized the absolute misogyny of language that was thrown at me. Just the things that were said to minimize your experience as a woman. And it was all part of, we still kind of hear it, oh, it's just boys being boys. It's locker room talk. It's like, you know what? No, it's not, because it shuts you down.
Right.
It makes you ashamed of things that are perfectly normal. And why are you so much greater just because you have a penis?
Well, let me explain. No, I mean...
Yeah, could you?
Let me go back to something you said that just made me laugh, though,
yeah.
in a very random way. Is like when you were talking about being comfortable with your body. I mean, like the good news that I could tell them, I'm sure you could tell them, I'm sure anyone listening could probably relate to this, is we can tell any teenager, you're never going to be comfortable in your body. Oh. You're never going...
I scare them like that, Steve.
Somebody, I was at a diner like a long time ago in North Hollywood with a whole group of gay boy friends, and we were all going to go see some show after it in somewhere, some little theater that our friend was doing. And it had to be like a Saturday night because all these really young kids were coming in. It clearly was junior prom, not even senior prom. And the girls were like decked out. The guys, the little boys were in all their like oversized tuxedos that were like a little too big on them. And I just really like looking at all of them, like they were all so tiny, but the whole place was packed with them and like our table. And we're all sitting there, and Dennis Hensley, I am saying his last name, a friend of mine, Dennis Hensley turns and just says quietly to the table, "Hey guys," and he ushers us all in, and we all lean in. He goes, "Should we tell them?" "Nah, they'll find out." And we all started laughing because the answer to that could be anything.
That is so true.
Do you have a favorite subject that you get to teach? Is it broken up into subjects, or is there like a progressive lesson plan?
It's a series of classes, and it is broken up into different topics, like anatomy and birth control. It's funny when I first started teaching, I liked the hard sciences. I liked the anatomy and the birth control, and I still do, because there's less room for crazy questions. Well, I think there's less room for crazy questions, but I can always go back to the hard science. It's also a lot of information, so the class tends to get filled up. Some of the other classes to me were a little more difficult. It was about relationships, or it's about gender identity, or not gender identity, but just gender. Because that covers everything from gender identity, sexual orientation, but also body image, self-esteem, how to communicate, good kinds of communication, all that kind of stuff, which really in some ways is the most important, because anatomy, they're probably going to hear most of that in a biology class and they can find that. But the nuances of like gender and relationship, I've come to really enjoy those more, but those were a little more difficult because, when we've been online this last year, but when you're in the classroom and it's a little bit more interactive. And so again, you get that 8:00 class and you're like, what do you think is the best way to communicate this particular thing? And it's like crickets, and you don't want to jump in and answer it. You want to engage them and get them to offer it, so that to me was one of the more difficult ones, but I've actually come to enjoy it because I've actually learned the most from teaching those.
So how are you scheduled to do this? Is it like a bat signal? Is there like a giant vagina that goes in the sky?
Vagina in the sky.
That would be so great if it was a giant vagina, because so many people would be like, what is that? And some people are like, oh, I know what that is.
I had a student once. So we have diagrams and stuff, and I was doing anatomy one day. And of course, the diagram of the female internal anatomy it's blown up so they can actually see what the fallopian tubes look like. But I had one student went, "Is it that big?" It's like, no, yes. Honey, it's just...
Yes, I keep mine in my locker outside, Timmy.
It couldn't be more convenient. Is the classes are scheduled. There's an online, and also we have an app. And basically the classes are all put up, and then we pick which classes we want to do, and we sign up. It's really a privilege. It's just such a privilege to do it, and I just, again, as we said many times, it's just too important. A lot of times they have a lot of this information, but as I've said, I'm like, I know sometimes if I'm teaching slightly older teens, it'll be like, look, I know you've probably heard this, but hey, hearing it again, never a bad idea. And maybe there's a little something new because the science is changing all the time. So maybe there's some new information here that you didn't know. So let's see if we can learn something, like I'll throw things out like that. I don't want to just assume, I'm coming in all knowing. It's like, no, I mean, like I said, they throw phrases out sometimes where it's like, what? Like, that's a new one.
So here's the most important question I'm going to ask you of the day. It's going to be the final question. Yep, here it comes. How would 14, 13, 15-year-old Mary have reacted to this Mary type person coming in to teach her about sex education?
Oh my God, she would have been mortified. She would have sat in the back, trying to be invisible, but furiously taking notes. Furiously taking notes, maybe even diagrams. Seriously, oh my God, I was so uncomfortable with the topic of sex. That's why this is, you're like, is this the definition of irony? Like just being like such a slow bloomer and so afraid of sex, and like not almost like la 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 la. Now, if for those who can't picture, I have my fingers in my ears going la 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 la. I can't hear you about the topic of sex, and yet here I am. I wish. I'm going to amend that statement only in that if it had been this program with someone coming in, let's even, me with this kind of inclusivity, I might have been more engaged and maybe more open. I think the difficult part for me is when you say 14, 13-year-old Mary, I go back to the 70s when this stuff wasn't talked about.
Right.
So it's hard for me almost to make the, like fantasy world, you're in a bubble now and we can talk about anything. I do think I would have been fascinated because I am the perpetual student and just love learning things. And this was a topic I didn't understand. Like I said, I would be furiously taking notes.
We end these shows with 3 super easy questions. The first one by heart, which is, where can people find you? Where can people follow you online to find out more of your artistic side?
Well, I do have a website, maryweiss.com, and it's Mary with an I, but that's really just kind of voiceover stuff. But I'm not a huge one for the social medias. I'm on Facebook under Mary Weiss, and I'm on the Insta with I think it's Maritsky22, Maritsky W20. I've even forgotten. But you're going to see mostly cat pictures, so I just want you to know. It's mostly cat photos.
Our last 2 questions can reflect back to anything we've already talked about, or anything you want to say. Question number 1: who inspires you?
Well, the first person I think of is my mom. She really was the inspiration for me to do, to volunteer, to be the bigger person. My mom she had such a big heart, and sorry, I miss her. She's been gone like 12 years now. But she just had such a big heart. We were the house that kids, my friends just walked in and sat, went to the fridge, got something to drink and sat down with my mom. There was a generosity there, and that inspired me. I really believe, all 5 of my siblings, we all get along. We have different, different political and economic, whatever. But no matter what, we can all hang out and laugh and are there for each other. And we all know that came from our mom. And also, Steve, you inspire me.
Oh, you kids who come on this show and tell me that I inspire you. Come on.
You do.
I'm going to Venmo you the money.
Don't
worry. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And the final question, which because you listen to the show, tell me something good.
Something good. I really... There's light. There's light at the end of this tunnel. I really, I have noticed just a lifting of this oppressive energy that's come from a lot of different places. And for myself, I've noticed that I am so much more right now in the absolute, I'm in this moment of it's going to be what it's going to be and it's going to be okay. Someone said to me the other day that I really loved, we're talking about like new normal, when everything's going to get back to normal. It's like, well, I don't know that everything's going to be normal. It's a new normal. That's the word I've been hearing. And my friend said, a better normal. How about a better normal? And I loved that. This idea of a better normal. And I don't feel like that's Pollyanna. I just feel like I think our eyes have been opened in a lot of ways in this last year. Maybe even these last 4 years for a lot of different reasons. This pandemic has shown us really, truly what is the gaping holes in our society. And so I just feel a sense of, the word is grace. I feel a grace about what the future holds and that we're all going to be okay. I love that. That grace just feels so good right now because we've all been in a lot of fear and, panic, and there just feels like there's a grace. The grace that comes also with that this last year has taught us about what's important. And what's really been important has been friends. It's been connecting to you. It's been, there's been a simplicity of our lives and distilling it down to what are the most important things. That's where the better normal is, a better normal.
Thank you, Mary, for sharing your good for the second time with me. You're a repeat good customer and good friend. Next time on World Gone Good.
I would just love people to see the simplicity in veganism and living plant-based. My life changed 8 years ago on the spot, and I've never gone back.
Caroline Simpson joins me to talk the good talk of going vegan and how it benefits the planet and the animals and you and your own health. We're going to chat it up about how she can turn any recipe vegan, the good and the bad of eating eggs, my beloved eggs. You know how much I love my eggs. And meatless Mondays. What could be bad about a meatless Mondays? That's what you're asking, right? Trust me, you're going to find out because she ain't shy and neither am I. So you're going to get some really good truths. And on top of all this goodness, Caroline is my second ever international guest. But don't let that Irish twang of hers fool ya. She actually resides down under in one of my favorite countries. That's right, Australia. I hope you'll join me for our globally good conversation. Until then, be good.